Okay, here we are. My name is Rabbi Harry Rozenberg, and with my good friend
Reuven,
who happens to be humble but a famous musician. I believe played on a lot of famous songs around the world, including Despacito, maybe.
No,
Turn that off.
No, it's okay. No.
I thought I saw Despacito.
No, I wrote for one of his songs.
Oh, the guy. Okay,
yeah.
he wrote for the Despacito master, which is for any American in the world. You know, that's as glorious as life can get for the American lifestyle.
No, actually, my if you're already talking
once
to the
we're
Americans, you're already talking to the Americans, then I had the privilege to sing live with Stevie Wonder on stage.
Oh. That's actually a real big honor. It's a real big kavod.
Yeah. So
can't even joke about that because he's.
Yeah. So that's if you want to go. That was my highlight as far as the career.
Well, it's my honor to discuss with you something that we're working on based on the Vilna Gaon's playbook for the Geula that we brought to Rav Yanuka for approval. And right now we'll go over what the strategy is and what the Rav Yanuka said and some of the miracles surrounding it. First, we start off in the Vilna Gaon over here, in the Sefer Orot Hagra. And just to mention, I'm a descendant of the Vilna Gaon, and I think that these things interest me just simply because of epigenetics, because it's in my genetics to be thinking about these matters. So it says over here, Be'et HaGeula, Yiga'alu Berishona, Aseret HaShvatim. When the Geula happens, there's going to be a redemption. At the end of the time of the exile, could be any day now, there will be a Geula, and it's going to come first to Aseret HaShvatim, the 10 tribes. V'achar kach Shevet Yehuda. And then afterwards, the tribe of Yehuda. Who's the tribe of Yehuda? How does the Hatikva go? You're the singer. Nefesh Yehudi Homia, the soul of the Judite. In our national anthem, we say Nefesh Yehudi. We don't say Nefesh Yisraeli, not the soul of the Israelite, but the soul of the Jew. Afterwards, the generation of the wilderness that didn't make it into Israel will come back. But that's already a little metaphysical. We'll get to that after.
Okay. So who are the 10 Shvatim?
This is the great question. I love that you asked it. First and foremost, the Vilna Gaon is considered the greatest halachic authority maybe for like 1,000 years time. Meaning you don't have really anyone going against what he said. You can have other opinions, but he was considered the greatest halachic, Kabbalistic master of his time for hundreds of years before and after. And so all the yeshivas today in Israel are studying Talmud of the Vilna edition. You know, everything comes from Vilna of our Torah and Gemara learning. So his words are taken seriously.
Okay.
So I go to big rabbis, and I go to the guys who are learning Torah all day, all night. I say, the Vilna Gaon said it. What does it mean to you? Everyone's drawing. What is it? What are we supposed to do with this? We don't even know what it's talking about. So here we are. We're going to go through what we call the sugya, this topic, and we'll get a little bit of clarity. See over here we have a timeline. We have the children of Israel going here, blue, and then boom. You see, there's a split of the kingdom of Israel and the kingdom of Judah. So we know that there's 12 tribes. The sons of Jacob are the tribes of Israel. Mm-hmm. They leave Egypt. They go into the land. They end up building a holy temple, a Beit HaMikdash. Mm-hmm. King Solomon's there. And then we see, shortly after King Solomon's reign, there's what's called the secession. There's a split. The kingdom of Judah is in the south, and the kingdom of Israel is in the north. Why'd they split? They say that the taxes were too high for the northern 10 tribes to go down to pay their taxes for the temple. So they ended up making their own temple.
What does this mean, Assyrian exile?
This exile happens now to the 10 tribes. So when the 10 tribes go into exile, when they get kicked out of the land, the tribe of Judah stayed for hundreds of years more. So the Assyrians come in.
We're talking about from 3,000 to 3,300. So 300
years ago.
Huh?
This is This is the year 3300. So this would be
all this happens in 300 years.
Yeah. Well, the first temple stood, I believe, for 410 years, I believe. And so while the first temple was still standing, 10 tribes go into exile. This is before the story of Purim, before the Jews get kicked out of the land. 10 tribes disappear.
Do we have any background of where they exiled to?
In the Psukim in the Tanakh, they'll say, for example, they've gone to the river Gozan, Ad Hayom Hazeh, until this day, meaning wherever they were sent to were these days. Now, all the locations listed into the Tanakh where they were sent to are places we identify today where it would be, and we look at the people there and we see some interesting coincidences that we're going to discuss in a few minutes. but it's a fascinating thing. Why, first of all, did the Assyrians exile them and not just kill them? This was the Assyrian army's military strategy in general. They wouldn't just kill people. It's you lose soldiers, you have to feed the soldiers. War is costly. But to intimidate and exile people is much more cheaper, affordable. And also, what it does is acts as a military barrier between other nations. So the Assyrians would have put the Israelites to a far enough east position on the edge of their kingdom to be the barrier between the Mongols, the Mongolian invading armies, which would come into the Assyrians, and there would be a barrier of the Israelites between them. So they were military geniuses, the Assyrians, and they exiled the northern 10 tribes of Israel. While we were still first in the first temple of Jerusalem, while we were going to the Beit HaMikdash, at the Holy Temple, and this is where the terminology "lost tribes of Israel" came from.
This is interesting because you're saying that there was a temple built when the kingdom of Judah basically reigned in that time, and then you have kingdom of Israel in exile. So what happened to the kingdom of Judah that time?
So they got to stay in Jerusalem for a couple hundred years more, doing their temple worship, and eventually, if you read over here, there was the Babylonian exile. Mm-hmm. And this is exactly when the story of Purim happens.
Okay.
But the crazy thing is, what I'm trying to bring to everyone's attention
is this one. Is this the 10?
Not only that, is how long were the Jewish people in Babylon for before we go back and build the second temple? How long was the story of Purim when we were there, and Mordechai and Esther? How many years were we there? We were only there for 70 years. The whole story took place in 70 years before we went back to Israel to build the second temple. Now my question is, how many nations did the king of Babylon at the time, Ahasuerus, rule over? 127 nations. And how many languages did he have to translate a letter to say, we're going to kill all the Jews on this day, all the Israelites on this day?
How many?
127. So he writes in 127 different languages from where to where? From Ethiopia to India. Hodu ad Kush. From Ethiopia to India, they're writing 127 different languages that we kill the Israelites to this day. If the Jewish people were only in Babylon for 70 years, how is it possible we reached Ethiopia to India speaking 127 different languages? Boom, you're pointing to the exact spot. This is the 10 tribes and Judah in one story again. He's rounding us up together. And the fascinating thing over here is, at the 8th chapter of the book of Esther, it says there was people who were mityahadim. They converted because the fear of the Jews came upon them.
Right.
And if we really want to understand this, is not just Gentiles or non-Jews converting. These were the 10 tribes taking back on the halacha, the law of the Jewish people. As we do know that the Jewish people are destined to hold on to the law and not the 10 tribes, because Jacob's blessing to Judah in the Bereshit in Genesis is, you will hold on to the scepter of the law until Shiloh comes. Who's Shiloh? Our commentators say Shiloh is the Mashiach, the Messiah that's going to come. And the Baal HaTurim, he says the gematria, the numerical value of the word Shiloh is Mashiach. So basically, Judah holds on to halacha until Mashiach comes.
And then?
We're going to get to them, what's their role in a minute. But during this time where people in the 8th chapter of Esther were converting across the Silk Road, we can reference communities like the Bukharian communities, where Bukharian Jews don't claim to be from the Judean exile. They claim to be from the 10 tribes, older community than the Jews. And when the story of Purim happened, they took on the laws of the Jewish people again. They retook on the laws.
So you're saying to me that before this, the kingdom of Judah, so there was no really. It was called what? It was the kingdom of Israel was they not taking no. They didn't have any Jewish.
It was really Malchut David. Oh, before Malchut David, it was Shaul HaMelech. It was just the kingdom of Israel, people of Israel in their land. The 12 tribes united, but they did have a halacha and Jewish traditions. Yes, but you see that already at the time of the first temple, the northern 10 tribes were doing avodah zarah. They were worshipping idols. They built 2 idols in their land of golden cows, and they didn't allow them to go Ola L'Regel, to go to the Beit HaMikdash, the holy temple. So in the 10 tribes, in the Tanakh, it says when they're trying to go for the temple, they had guards guarding the border, and said, you go to these temples of golden cows. So they're already worshipping idols at the time. So the law of Judah was far from them at a certain point.
So they weren't really
sinning.
They were sinning.
Yeah, big time.
Okay.
Ovdei Avodah Zarah, idol worshippers.
Okay.
And you look at the Bukharian community, as we were saying, some of their last names are Issacharov, Yosefov,
Right.
Benjaminov,
Right.
all these names of these tribes.
Okay.
Shimonov,
Right.
Rubenov.
Right.
These are the Bukharian Jews who, in this time of the Purim, got connected to us again.
I get you. Interesting.
So here we have this scenario, and if you see when we say the line of law stays in Judah until the Mashiach comes, if you see we have the judges, the prophets, the Tanaim wrote the Mishna, the Amoraim wrote the Talmud, Savarayim who were the ones redacting things, the Gaonim writing halachic responses, and then the Rishonim making books of the law based on what was said by the Gaonim, and then the Achronim, which are the rabbis of the last few hundred years, finally making everything clear. And today they say we have the Rosh Yeshivas, we have the leaders of the yeshivas, the closest thing we have. So I have here the list of...
And then we have Solomon, king of Judah.
he was from Judah.
No, Solomon, king of Judah. That's Shlomo Yehuda Be'eri.
Let's go. This is the Yanuka's name he's referencing, and we should be worthy. So first of all, it says in the Tanakh, which is probably where the Vilna Gaon gets his teaching from, it says in the future, don't worry. The 10 tribes will be found and brought back from all the corners of the world, and it says the staff of Joseph will one day unite with the staff of Judah, and this will be the redemption. So we know they disappeared, but for all these thousands of years, we know that there's a kingdom out there that we have to find and unite with. So we have these prophecies, and we're going to show them. Even most Jews don't even realize that they pray every single day, Ashkenazim at least, before Shmona Asrei, before the Amidah, they say Tzur Yisrael, Kuma be'ezra Yisrael, uftei kirumecha, Yehuda v'Yisrael. We speak every day when we pray that there should be the unification of Judah and Israel again. The whole exile we're in right now is simply just because of the split of the tribes. Once the tribes are united, we're the strongest force in the world.
And you also say it in Rosh Hashanah 12 times. You say Leolam Hashem Devarcha Nitzav B'Shamayim.
Oh yeah.
You say it 12 times because of the 12 tribes.
I love that. Thank you. It's our secret sauce. So now let's talk about where the tribes went and who's who. Within 100 years of the tribes of Israel going into the Far East,
Okay.
3 major nations and spiritual religions come into birth within 100 years.
One.
The first one is, we'll stop on the train, is where they were sent to, which is Afghanistan.
Okay.
In Afghanistan today, you have a tribe called the Pashtun. The Pashtun number in Afghanistan 25 million people about, in Pakistan 15 million, and in India another 5 million. And we said it was from Hoduad Kush. So you see, from Afghanistan to India, there's a tribe called the Pashtun. The Pashtun have another word that they refer to themselves as. How they call themselves is what? Bani Israel.
Really?
Bani Israel. Okay?
Bnei Israel.
Bani, yeah, the children of Israel is what they were called.
Wow.
Not 10% of, not 100% of the Afghan Pashtuns call themselves Bani Israel.
Wow.
Even Malala Yousafzai, who won the Nobel Peace Prize, her last name Yousafzai means children of Yosef, children of Joseph. She's a Pashtun, and she's referring to herself as Bani Israel, the children of Israel. When I found out about this stuff about, 15 or so years ago, the first thing I did was I went on Facebook and Twitter and was typing all the names. Yousafzai, Rubaini, Gadi, Ashuri, all the big tribes in Afghanistan, and I'm going to all the guys messaging them. Is it true you're from the lost tribes of Israel? 100% of the people said, yes, it's true. So what we ended up doing is we built a map of the world, and we said, if you're from the tribes of Israel, go mark yourself, identify yourself. We want to see who you are. We called it iTribe, where we'd message them and have communications and contacts. And Afghanistan was like, wow, so much coming out of there. We sent big data polls, surveys, and ask them all these questions. It turns out there's about 50 or 60 customs and traditions only found amongst Jews from Moses, still going on in Afghanistan today.
For example,
would be like Yibum and Chalitza, Levirate marriage, So if a man dies and there's no children, the wife has to marry into the brother's side, which is only like a Moses concept. We see like Moses' laws. They do in Afghanistan Arei Miklat, cities of refuge. So it means in the Torah we have cities of refuge. If someone kills inadvertently or is fleeing for his life, There are safe cities where he can go to that he's protected.
Unbelievable.
In Afghanistan, not only do they have them today, there was a movie that America made and a book about an American soldier, a real story that got left. I think it was called Behind Enemy Lines. It was about a Navy SEAL, American guy who gets, or operative, gets stuck behind the enemy lines in Afghanistan. Helicopter crashes, and the Taliban's chasing him. Well, obviously the Taliban's not funded by Afghanistan. It's radical Islamic Wahhabi Islam, so the Taliban's chasing the guy. He finds a city of refuge in Afghanistan, and they take him in and protect him. And now the Taliban comes to the village, and they say, hand over the American. And they say, we can't, because of the laws of Moses. They have a book called Pashtun Wali. Our laws from Musa the Prophet, our laws from Moses say, no, we can't hand them over on our life. The Taliban said, okay. They come with AK-47s, rocket launchers, they line up outside the village, they say, hand over the guy and we'll leave. The tribe said, no, and they came outside with their guns, and they're battling and fighting. And a lot of them died, and they protected the American until the American army came and rescued the guy. And he still can't believe till this day how people who would consider him the enemy would still protect him, but they're very serious about their laws of Moses. So serious that the Pashtun already had converted to Islam through years in war and negotiating. But when the Quran comes in conflict with Pashtun Wali, their code of Moses, Pashtun Wali comes first. So meaning other Muslims could eat camel and shark and shrimp.
Well, they won't?
Pashtun Wali won't because of the laws of Moses. They have their own code of law beyond all of Islam that comes just from Moses.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
It's fascinating. The craziest thing is between me and you is that according to Islamic prophecy, their final Imam, the Imam Mahdi, their final Mashiach for them, comes from a place called Khorasan. And Khorasan we know today is Afghanistan. And they say he marches an army into Iran to come free Jerusalem. So all the radical Islamic people think they're going to come and team up with Iran and kill all the Jews. It's not the case, because now I can tell you for sure, officially, that the Afghan people have reached out to Israel, are in touch with the state of Israel, and there will be partnerships between the two. Which would mean that the Mashiach for Islam is actually someone from the 10 tribes who we may consider a Mashiach to come save us and redeem us. So it's like they'll all go, wow. The story was right. The Jewish story was right.
So it's gonna come upside down for them. Like they won't really. Wow.
Embedded into Islamic theology is a redeemer from the house of Yosef, from the 10 tribes. So for me, I see that as checkmate for radical Islam. Especially if you look today in the Afghan-Iranian border, they're skirmishing, they're fighting each other over water rights. So it means the Afghans are already shooting and killing back and forth with Iranians. And God help us, if they have Israel's koach and strength, it would work. But this brings us to what's going to happen to them. What happens to the 10 tribes, right? The Mishna says, there's an argument in the Mishna, do the 10 tribes return or do they not return? Do they come back or do they not come back? According to the opinion of Rabbi Akiva, they don't come back. And according to the opinion of Rabbi Elazar, they do come back. And they have a pasuk, a verse. And it has to do with, just like the tribes go into exile, so is the day over. So Rabbi Akiva says, just when a day is over, it's over. There's no more day, that's the day. So they don't come back. And Rabbi Elazar says, guess what happens after a day's over? There's another day. So they do come back. So there's an argument if they come back or not. Now I saw an interesting teaching which helps me shed light on this Mishnah. And it says, from Rav Tzadok HaKohen, that in the future the Jewish people become like Kohanim, and the non-Jewish people of the world become like the Jews, and Israel gets called Jerusalem, and the world gets called Israel. Meaning everyone upgrades and elevates. So I'm looking now at Afghanistan and Israel and the relationship that they're building over humanitarian aid. You know, Israel's going to be bringing them clean water and electricity and systems to help them govern. They're poor people, impoverished, suffering so much. And Afghanistan will help Israel back. Who knows? You know,
I'm sorry.
Please, yes, important.
But like, if we see, like, politics-wise, forget for this is not politics. But if we look at politics, we see the way the world is built today. You have America, which pretty much didn't really mesh with Afghanistan too well,
Mm.
and they're allies with Israel. And so if what happens if the Israeli people become allies with Afghanistan? Will that have to come
The
again?
issue with
you know what I mean? Because could that be?
let me explain.
Could that be a political problem?
No, let me explain.
Okay, maybe
The issue is what America tried to do in Afghanistan is create a centralized government there.
okay.
Afghanistan historically has been ruled by tribal federations, decentralized, meaning each tribe has their own rulers and leaders over their territories.
Mm-hmm.
And all the tribal leaders get together once a year and called a Loya Jirga in Afghanistan, where they discuss what's going on. So power in Afghanistan for 2,600 years. Remember, Pashtun people were formed 100 years after the exile of Israel to the Far East, same place, same time. Afghanistan's called the graveyard of empires, meaning same people, no one ever able to conquer them. Alexander the Great, Napoleon, Genghis Khan, the Russians, the Soviets, America. They're an unconquerable nation. So they've been there ruling themselves decentralized, tribal federation the whole time. And America comes in and says, now you're going to have a president, you're going to have an office. And then they're like, this is not going to work. So what Israel's actually doing is the platform, iTribe, that's mapping out these tribes, village by village, is creating basically a digitally distributed version of the State of Israel, where the State of Israel's borders are going to go deep into Afghanistan, where villages could self-identify for what we would call early on something like digital citizenship, which doesn't involve conversion or the right of return. It doesn't mean they can make aliyah, and doesn't mean they're Jewish. But they still could have digital citizenship to the State of Israel and get certain benefits from Israel's technology and infrastructure. Meaning one day Israel could be doing surgery through 3D printed telesurgery in Afghanistan from a doctor here in Jerusalem. It could be something could happen this way. Afghanistan has a lot to offer Israel. There's over $1 trillion of rare earth minerals there that's now being pillaged by China and Russia. They're taking advantage, and the tribes aren't getting anything back, and they're living in poverty. Israel says, we could bring you water, we could bring electricity, we could bring infrastructure, and we could really work together. And guess what the Afghan people said? We would love this more than anything. And guess what the people from the Abraham Accords have said? I said, it's not the Abraham Accords anymore. This would be called the Jacob Accords, Heskem Yaakov, for the brothers of Jacob. And this would be a wonderful addition if there's a peace partnership with Afghanistan. And they said, I'm sure Trump would be very happy if there was something good that we could do for the Afghanistan people, because he feels terrible how Biden's administration pulled out and left them to die. It was a miserable thing that we did to our people that we were protecting and helping out for all these years. So personally, if Trump wins the election or if Trump's the president, Afghanistan's going to be America's pet project to help them rebuild them. And if Israel's already doing it, they'll support Israel in doing that. Now hear me out. Here's where it gets crazy. Because we know that the Vilna Gaon says there is no Geula for the Jews. There's no redemption for the Jews until the redemption comes first for the 10 tribes. So if you Google the words now, Vilna Gaon and 10 tribes or lost tribes, one of the first things that pops up is the letter that the students of the Vilna Gaon wrote to the 10 tribes. It was written by Rav Yisrael of Shklav in Tzfat hundreds of years ago when they came to the land from Europe. The first thing they did when they got here is they wrote a letter to the 10 tribes. And you have to read it, because it'll make you cry. It's the most beautiful thing in the world. And basically what they're saying is, listen, 10 tribes, we've been in Galut exile for 2,000 years and it's miserable. It's so painful for us. We're suffering so badly. And we heard that you are a strong and mighty kingdom. That you've been there this whole time, a mighty warrior kingdom, and everyone's afraid of you. We have bullies raping us, killing us, forcing us to convert. We need you guys to come with your army and protect us. And they're begging.
The Judah basically is begging.
Judah is begging the 10 tribes, come protect me with your military power. This is the students of the Vilna Gaon. The greatest Torah sages alive, hundreds of years ago, are begging the 10 tribes for their military power. And now we're looking at it today, and we see Afghanistan's already at war with Iran on the border, and there are 10 tribes, brother. And you know what Iran is doing? They're renting land in Syria and Lebanon, and they're renting land in Gaza, and they're pouring America's billions of dollars into bringing terror into our land. I said, let's go bring terror into their land. So what I think and I foresee will happen is through the partnership in Afghanistan and Israel, the Jewish people, instead of spending millions and millions of dollars on sending our soldiers helmets and baby wipes and lotion, they're going to be sending the money to Afghanistan to create armies, to go make sure Iran's busy enough on their own borders. And this would, according to the Vilna Gaon strategy, be the redemption in itself. A redemption for the 10 tribes. Why? Because they're now in a state of poverty and misery, no water, no electricity, no medical care, no health. They're dying, they're suffering.
But they're strong. But
military-wise, they're strong. But quality of life-wise, the worst quality of life in the world. In the world. So if Israel brings them good quality of life, strong living, electricity, water, medicine,
basics,
and they provide back for Israel to destroy their enemies, both of us get the Geula, a redemption in one shot. Because it basically says there is no difference between Yemot HaMashiach and not Yemot HaMashiach unless it's Shibud Malchiot,
right.
Which is like the yoke on our shoulders of the kingship that we're under. And if you look at the world history and all these wars that we're fighting, every single war for all these hundreds of years were really financed, both sides, by the same financial institutions.
For example?
The central bank. It's, for example, today. Look at Iran and Israel. When Iran sent all those rockets to us and we sent all the Iron Dome and shot them down, where do you think Iran got the money from? The U.S. released billions of dollars to them. Who's paying for Israel's Iron Dome? The U.S. The U.S. tax-paying dollars are paying for the Iron Dome and Iranian rockets at the same time. But
that and how is that going to be solved? As long as money is an issue for people, as long as mammon, as long as finances and capitalistic treasuries like we see, and that people who today you see it's not even nothing to do with Israel, nothing to do with America, nothing to do with anyone, just humanity That's how I see it. I'm just asking. I'm not saying.
No, there was a time when Israel had King Solomon and he was king over the world, and there was peace in the world. There was money, there was exchanges, there was trading, but there was peace in the world.
Because the money wasn't the issue?
Because people weren't taking money and figuring out how they could invest it into two enemies to fight so they could make money off of a war.
So what were they investing it on?
Back then?
Living?
Yeah, quality of life.
Quality of life.
Everyone was enjoying. They were planting vineyards. They were studying math and the plants. And it was in Greece. They were philosophizing for a little bit. It was just
to live.
Yeah.
To simplify living.
Yeah.
So really, So would you consider Geula? Would you consider redemption? Simplify living?
Redemption is when we're free to pursue the pleasures of this world, of understanding how the world was made and the science behind it and where it's found in the Torah, and good food and good wine and laughing with people, to enjoy the planet. God made this world for us to enjoy it. So the redemption is finally we could enjoy it without having to worry, is my rent late? Do I have
so
to
that's
pay
good
for
for
election?
everyone. It's not necessarily
Everyone wins.
Good. Everyone wins.
The whole world's
the whole
win.
world wins.
Yes. Our job is to be a light unto nations. So if Israel actually activates digital citizenship around the world and starts to see who in the world wants Israel to be in control, you know what would happen if Israel was in control of the world? It would be a peaceful world. Israel puts all of their money when they can into science and research, and they're bringing clean water projects around the whole world. A place smaller than the size of New Jersey.
But I'll tell you what the fear, I think, of the world is.
Sure.
There is a fear that when a Jew comes in, they think like he's trying to control in order to control. But and that's where we have to, as simple people, as basic people who look for good in everyone, need to assure them that that's not the...
There's only one way that's going to happen. And if you were, let's say, a non-Jewish person and you started talking like this, they'll cancel you, fire you. Once they start talking about Jews and control and, big noses, the people talk about that and then they get fired and canceled. But the truth is, there's something to it. And the Jewish people can't be embarrassed anymore to discuss it. And if you look in the writings of the Vilna Gaon, based on the Zohar, he says, what's the final battle the Jewish people have to face? It's not Ishmael, it's not Arabs, it's not Esau, it's not the church. It's the Erev Rav, the mixed multitude. Who's the Erev Rav? The Erev Rav were the Egyptian magicians, Egyptian fraternity of magicians and magic workers who left Egypt with Moses and the children of Israel and went into the desert with them. And they joined the nation. And they were the ones who were responsible for the sin of the golden calf. When we all had light inside of our brain, they ruined it for us. And they stayed within the people of Israel for thousands of years. And the Vilna Gaon says, anyone could read it themselves, go to Google or pull out the book, that the final battle the Jewish people have to face are the rulers over the Jewish people, who look like Jews and talk like Jews, but are actually from the Erev Rav, from the mixed multitude, and they desire war and the forgetting of Torah, are their main attributes. They look for wars, they want to make wars, and they try to forget the Torah, to create wars in the world.
But it starts from a small little cell, and it grows.
Sure.
So
what I'm trying to say is that the nations of the world will start to trust the Jews when the Jews start to realize that Zionism, without Torah, without Hashem, without God,
that's not Zionism, though.
This, guess what, today is what has become of Zionism and Judaism.
But Zionism is a mistake from what people know today, of today's Zionism. It's not right.
Well, that's what I'm trying to say, is the Jewish people are defending today's Zionism tooth and nail. And they're saying it's about military safety and this and there, and it's just about that, and not about God and returning to God and why this is happening and all these matters. So basically, the people of the world will want to see the Jewish people act like the Jewish people, and not a secular nation who's relying on wars to prove God. You know how many people, the rockets it got shot down from the Iron Dome. Wow, God is real. I said, no. America made technology to shoot the rocket and to shoot it down. This is like magnet stuff. This is not a miracle. It's not a miracle that we're shooting rockets out of the sky. It's crazy that we're allowing the same financial institutions to fund the rockets and to fund the Iron Domes and to put us in our shelters so some people on some island could be getting very rich right now. This is what the Vilna Gaon says the final battle is for the Jewish people, to rid Israel of this type of mentality. And it's going to be difficult without, like I said, having military partners with a 25-person nation in Afghanistan who could hold our enemies at check and at bay and say the rockets are stopping. But if you actually look at the Silk Road and
would you say this is a controversial issue, though, for some people?
It's controversial because you have organizations like the Anti-Defamation League and stuff who, if you talk like this, you'll get fired and canceled and get kicked out of the community. But if I'm coming in the name of the Vilna Gaon and saying, hey, this is not Harry on his conspiracy theory horse. This is prophecy from the Zohar, redacted by the greatest sages ever. And if the Jewish people don't make this our national attention of what the Vilna Gaon said, because he's our real leader, then what are we talking about? And by the way, I told all this to the Yanuka. We're going to get there very soon what the Yanuka says. But if just to wrap it up, if you look at the concept of digital citizenship and this platform, the iTribe, of Israel starting to recognize villages around the world who say, we're from the tribes of Israel, I said there was 3 major religions and cultural booms that happened across the Silk Road within 100 years of the tribes of Israel going to exile. We did the Pashtun. The next is Buddhism. Buddhism was founded the same exact years right after Pashtun, and the first 2 students of the Buddha were Afghan Pashtun from the 10 tribes of Israel. This is recorded history. So the 10 tribes of Israel and Buddha start talking, boom, this guy becomes a guru for his people. And instead of now, they used to offer their kids to their gods on mountaintops to bring rain, now they're like, let's do Hitbodedut, let's meditate and find nirvana, find peace. Like, who'd you talk to in those 50 years? So we see that, and then if you go all the way to the end of the Silk Road and get to Japan, you have the Japanese monarchy of Shintoism. The oldest kingdom in the world today is in Japan, a line of kings direct for 2,600 years. The Japanese kingdom, their monarchy, says they were a chosen nation, exiled from their homeland, and reestablished the kingdom here in Japan. If you go to Japan today, they have Mount Moriah, Har Moriah, where we had our temple, and they have a temple there, Mount Moriah. They have like 3 chambers. Outer chamber, people go to pray. Inner chamber, they're doing animal sacrifices on deers. And then they have an inner chamber where they keep this golden ark called the Mikoshi on 4 poles. And it's got big birds, golden birds on the ark. And in their ark, they keep 3 things. I think a sword, a mirror, and a little gem the shape of a yud. 3 things in their ark. and all the priests, the Yamabushi in Japan, are wearing little circular boxes, circular tefillin, phylactery, on their forehead and blowing the horn, the shofar, every day. Anyone could look this up. It's public information. So, clear as day. We don't suggest them.
I don't know. I
we're
didn't
not
know that.
Yeah, it's mind blowing.
Guys, I'm very ignorant, and so I'm learning a lot here. So hopefully we're learning together.
No, so yeah, the most interesting thing is the question is, the 10,000 Israelites reached Japan and started a new kingdom? And I don't think it's the answer. You look at the story of Joseph and Esther. What's the similarity between Joseph and Esther? What's the common theme between these two people in Jewish history? They were both one individual from the house of Israel who ended up in a far-flung region, Joseph into Egypt, Esther into Babylon. Somehow, through incredible divine providence, they both rose to become second in power, most powerful person in the land that they were in. They rose. Why? Because they had something that the king saw, that they noticed. So what I think happened, or what I'm speculating happened, based on the Arizal says we have to go to all 70 nations to do rectifications. But he said it's enough if one person goes to one of the 70. One person could do the rectification on behalf of all of Israel. I think an individual from the house of Israel, from the tribe of Joseph, made it to Japan on a business trip or his boat crash, whatever it is. He gets to the island. All the people see him. And they're seeing, what is this guy? Is he a spy, not a spy? He must have done something to show them he's smarter than every single person on the island. He could run things more efficiently, like Joseph did in Egypt. He was used by the king. The king said, you're in, come, you're my second advisor. Somehow, an Israelite must have risen to second in power in Japan, and they made a temple on Mount Moriah, and they have a Beit HaMikdash, same as like we have, the same exact thing. So,
or maybe it's someone from the exile of the 10 tribes.
That's what I mean to say. Someone from the exile of the 10 tribes made it to Japan. I'm not saying 10,000 people made it to Japan.
Oh, you're saying
but even if it was one man. Like, imagine if Joseph went to Egypt.
You're saying, but really, you're actually.
What I'm saying is, it doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter, but you're incenting there is more.
It doesn't make a difference. Because what's going to happen in the future is the same thing, whether it's one way or the other. The same result in the future is going to happen. It says in the Talmud, in Tractate Pesachim, that the reason that the tribes went into exile in the first place was to come back with converts at the end of that. So when I'm saying Rabbi Akiva is saying they don't come back, I'm saying that it means to say they don't come back geographically. When he says in the Mishna they don't come back, it means to say they don't come back geographically. But they come back. We unite with them. We say Aguda Achad, there will be a world-bound community. According to the opinion, they do come back. He means to say they come back into the fold, like we unite with them in the future. So it's not really an argument. There's going to be a global Israel that's going to form. So according to the Mishnah, one was saying they don't come back to this little land smaller than the size of New Jersey. That's going to be for the Jews, for the Kohanim, for my priests, the ones who held Torah for 2,000 years. But the whole world will be my children and will be called
United.
Israel. Yeah. So we see across the whole entire Silk Road hundreds of millions of people who have this identity, who are looking towards Israel to say, hey, we somehow have to play a role in the future. How is that going to happen? I don't ever do this, and I did it one time, this thing called the Goral, where you could ask a question and open up a random page in the Rebbe Lubavitch writing, and then supposedly you get an answer right away. And people have wild stories of what has happened to them when they do it.
Right.
So I saw a website which is ask the Rebbe a question, and it automatically, randomly chooses from all the pages photocopied of his writings, and it's the same system. I said, okay, I saw this rabbi did it. I can't sleep at night, so I just type in. I said, is it true that the 10 tribes have to have a redemption before the redemption comes to the Jewish people? Question mark. And I clicked send. And I get back a page, one page. And I'm starting to read the page, and I'm like, this is not connected. It's talking about Hanukkah. It's talking about lighting the menorah. But then I see at the end of the paragraph, it says, just like at the end of the day, when the day is over and it's the darkest, you light the candle to make light for the next day to light. And you light it more. And the whole argument of the Mishnah is there going to be another day? And the Rebbe Lubavitch says at the end of the day, you make light for the next day. Which really was like the most detailed answer I could have ever gotten for the argument from the Mishnah, right from the Rebbe. So I got chills. I said, I got so much chills. I don't even want to ask another question to ruin it. Because this was the craziest experience that I could have had.
You're saying you make light for the next day.
Yeah.
So you need to make light.
That's right. We're doing what
That's
we're
what
doing.
you're doing,
We're
right?
making the pilut.
So you make light.
Yeah. Also, one other time, I went to debate an African American leader once because he was saying that the Jewish people aren't really Jews, and you stole the Torah from Egypt, and we're really from ancient Egypt. I said, listen, I'm gonna have to go and debate the guy, and it's okay because he was really Igbo. He was really from the lost tribes of Israel. He didn't realize, and he was part of the community of people who are from the Black Hebrew Israelites and all different types of communities who are looking for their place and identity, but they don't know where it is yet. But their heart is really from the blood of Israel. So before my debate, I'm flying from Israel to America, and it was a big debate in front of lots of people in Harlem. And I stop in the airport in the room where the Lubavitch Rebbe is giving his talk, and I look on the screen right before I got on the airplane, and is the Rebbe and Mayor Dinkins, the African American mayor of New York City, shaking his hand, and he says, "Hey, there's no such thing as black, and there's no such thing as white. We're both equally the children of God. We're both created in His image, basically."
It will be not necessary and while every time that they are the legal and they are right and they are Islamic, etc., because they are not different. All of them are created by the same God.
And I said, this is the sign I see before going to bring the African. I said, you know what? I don't know who the Mashiach is going to be or who the Mashiach is not going to be. But here we have someone who is not normal, beyond human scopes. Wow. So that was just a small point to add. And let me tell you something. I know personally that our Prime Minister now, Bibi Netanyahu, wants the Goral, wants the redemption. So bad. How do I know? One is because, thank God, the government is doing Afghanistan operations. Secondly, is Rav Kaduri told one of the greatest Kabbalistic rabbis of our generation, he told Bibi himself, to you, you hand over the keys to the Mashiach, like from you to Mashiach. And when Bibi lost the last elections, everyone was laughing and not true. And then Bibi won again, like, oh, Rav Kaduri's blessing will be right. Most people don't even believe that this story ever happened. Happened to be one time I was getting a bracha from a mystical, Kabbalistic lady that the Prime Minister's wife goes to. I'm not going to say information, who she is, where she is, all secretive. I went to get a bracha, a blessing, and on my way out, I run into an old man. Right there, I run right into him. I look at him in the eyes. I don't know why I said this, but I said, it must be you saw a big righteous person in your lifetime. He says, it's correct. I was the driver for Rav Kaduri. I was his driver. And I said, is it true? Did he tell Bibi he's going to hand over the keys to the Mashiach, to the Geula? He says, yeah, it's true. And I filmed that conversation happening. Maybe I'll put it in the video here. And I was like, wow. So I know Bibi inside of his head, he wants the Mashiach to come. And the Lubavitch Rebbe also yelled, Bibi said, no, where's the Mashiach? אז אח שלך, אתה נהג של רב כדורי?
הייתי הנהג של הרב כדורי.
וראיתי אותך בכביש ואמרתי, אני מרגיש שאתה מישהו, ואמרתי, שם של רב כדורי?
תראה איך הוא ידע.
אני לא יודע איך אני יודע דברים כאלה.
עובדים כבר עובדים.
בעזרת השם.
מה, זה נכון שרב כדורי אמר לביבי, מהוא יבוא משיח?
הוא אמר, אתה תיתן את המפתחות למלך המשיח.
So hopefully we're living in a time where we can see Israel tap into and activate all the hundreds of millions of people around the world who would like to be part of the house of Israel in a way where we're mamash or legoyim, we're a light onto the nations. We're bringing you our lights, our technology, infrastructure, governance, and we're not supporting wars anymore. This is when the nations of the world will trust the Jews. When they see, look what they're doing. They're bringing, they're helping, they're providing, they're serving us. They're not telling us what to do. They're not putting laws on us. We're raising our hand and asking to be included in this thing called the Kingdom of Israel. So I went to the Rav Yanuka. I went to the rabbi. Let me just give a minute about the Yanuka, who he is. In every, not even, I wouldn't say every generation, every few generations, maybe once every few hundred years, the people of Israel is gifted with, I don't know better words to call it, a freak, someone not normal, someone with a non-normal brain and mind, who at a very young age is able to master the whole entire Torah, the Talmud Bavli, the Talmud Yerushalmi, the Zohar, the Midrashim, the Halacha, the books that the sages wrote for 2,000 years, and know them by heart, backwards and forwards in the inside of their mind. And not only that, they're known for performing miracles and wonders. And today, we didn't even know about it until a few years ago because he was staying hidden. there was a man called the Yanuka, the Rabbi Yanuka. Yanuka means to like pull from the source, who's alive from Sephardic descent. I heard maybe from the Arizal, from not, I don't know, from the Arizal's family, we'll have to clarify that, but from Sephardic descent, who is someone who's living like from hundreds of years ago, a Kabbalist, who sees things and his blessings work. And we hear all these stories, but the story's compiling now of this young man in his 30s, who 70-year-old and 80-year-old rabbis are coming and bowing down and kissing his hand, and he goes to the Ashkenazi Hasidim, and they all gather by the thousands for him to make them sing songs and teach Torah to them. It's like the most wondrous thing we have alive today. So I went to the Yanuka and I said, here's the Vilna Gaon, here's what he said, here's what's happening in Afghanistan, here's what the state of Israel may be doing to activate them and create a front against Iran. I said, what does the rabbi say? He says, that is the start of the Geula in itself. That's the start of the redemption. And we know right now, we'll talk about the timeline, that we're before Shabbat. There's 7 days of creation, there's 7,000 years of history. At the start of the 6,000th year is the Great Shabbat. But that's, a couple hundred years away. But we know the Jewish people make an early Shabbat. We light candles 18 minutes early, in Jerusalem 40 minutes early. So too we can enter this great Shabbat, the redemption, a little bit earlier, hopefully, according to this timeline.
Amen.
And now that we're talking about the Yanuka, I'd like to just share a quick story.
I'm waiting for this story.
And this is a true story, and I'll put all the pictures and the things to verify it. So I first met the Yanuka after I heard about him 3 years ago on the holiday of Shavuot. Right after I heard about him, I was running down to the mikveh in Silwan in the Arab village. They open up the mikveh there, and I see a rabbi coming up with hundreds of people. And all of a sudden I say, who's that? They say it's the Yanuka, and I go, wow. And he's walking, and everyone's trying to get a blessing and pushing here. And he's walking, and he stops right next to me and looks at me. Doesn't say a word. I didn't say a word. Everyone's, what's going on? So it was like an awkward silence. So then I yell out in Hebrew. I say, let me tell everyone here a story. I say, just 2 weeks ago I heard about the Rabbi Yanuka, and I said I should be worthy to run into him in Jerusalem and get a bracha. And here we are. So the Yanuka starts laughing. He gives me a big bracha, my son a bracha, and we carry on to the mikveh. All night long, people coming over to us saying, who are you? How did you get the blessings? Not giving blessings now. What's the story? I said, I don't know. So I went to go see Yanuka that week, and got in with him, and we were talking about the tribes and everything. Fascinating stuff. 1 year later, Chag HaShavuot, same holiday, same place, same time. I'm with my son going to the mikveh, 3:30 in the morning. Maybe it was different. Oh, again, we run into the Yanuka. And I say, Rabbi, come over here. I have to tell you updates about Afghanistan, what's going on, because we have serious operations now. Rabbi Yanuka is so happy to hear. I say, okay, I'll see you later, Rabbi. And about a half hour later or something, it's coming time for Nate's, for morning prayer. So I'm now getting ready to leave the old city, and I take a shortcut by King David's tomb. There's a field over there where the basketball court is. The church built a basketball court over the entrance to the tombs of the kings. And there's always like a little secret gate that's open that you can escape by the church backyard to get to Baka and Yamin Moshe, the neighborhoods. So, and the Yanuka prays by Yamin Moshe, so it's the path I like to take. I get to the gate, me, my son, and his few friends, and we see this year, for some reason, it's locked. We're trying to push and kick, but we look, it's a bolt on the top, sticking up locked, and a bolt on the bottom, locked, and sticking out locked, and a bolt in the middle, locked in 3 places. We push, we kick. I say to my son and his friends, I don't know what to tell you guys, it's unfortunate, but we got to turn around and go back the other way. They go, okay. So they turn around, they go back, and we start walking. After 10 meters of walking, less than a minute, I see in a pitch black field a group of 100 men and a little rabbi in the middle, and it's the Yanuka. I go, wow. So they're walking towards me, and I go, oh, Rabbi, I forgot to tell you one thing about Afghanistan. We start talking here and there. He says, it'll happen, we're good. But his Hasidim were like pushing and kicking me because it's time for a morning prayer. They were like in a big rush. So I say to the rabbi, L'tza'ari, Rabbi, I'm sorry, Rabbi, but the gate here is locked. We have to go around the other way to Har Zion, to leave this way, through the main gate. Instantaneously, without blinking an eye, the Yanuka says back to me, in Hebrew, Ze yipatach lanu. It's going to open for us. I thought to myself, maybe this is a crazy rabbi. Maybe it's a little bit too much. because I'm like a scientific guy, you know, I like the math and the science. And so next thing you know, I'm right next to the rabbi, and we walk towards the gate. And by the way, I sent the next day someone to take pictures of what the gate looks like so you could see. He's standing at the gate, I'm at the gate next to him, my son's there, 50 people around us in a circle. And again, it was the longest awkward silence of my life. About 5 or 6 minutes, no words, no touching anything. The rabbi's standing there like this, like meditating in front of the gate, in deep meditation. 5 minutes, 6 minutes. I'm looking around like, oh my gosh, this is crazy. This is going to be so embarrassing when it's... And then all of a sudden, he sticks out his hand, and the gate swings open. And the rabbi keeps walking like fast, like nothing happened. Half of his team, half the guys, or more than half, fell into a state I saw of shock. It means their legs were shaking and trembling, and they couldn't move. And we stood there for about 5 or so minutes trying to close the door, but we couldn't close it because all the bolts were sticking out. And it was all still locked. 3 locked, all sticking out. We saw with our own eyes, metal went right through metal. Didn't understand what we saw.
What?
Yeah.
What do you mean metal went through metal?
If this is the bolt, and it was still on this side of the door, it went to the other side, right in front of our face.
So you lost all logic.
We lost all logic.
You lost
I
logic.
had no clue what I saw until today. I don't understand what I saw. But I remember, when I was in yeshiva, they told me stories. I was in yeshiva in Tzfat. They told me stories of the Arizal, who was one of the greatest Kabbalists in the history of Kabbalah, who he opened locked gates. Sorry about the cat. He opened locked gates with his mind in Tzfat that were locked. So we see him, and they say the stories about the Baba Sali, another Sephardic Kabbalist. He was opening up locked gates in Jerusalem that were locked by the Ottomans of the church. He would come with his mind, boom, it would swing open. So afterwards, I've already heard the Yanuka joke about this. He says, opening up lock gates is my specialty. Like, he makes jokes about it. I was just with him on Yom Kippur. No, it's crazy. I was just with him on Yom Kippur, and he's the Chazan for Ne'ilah, and they're doing the end of this, and he looks at me. And my son's there, everyone's there, he looks at me, and he keeps going to me like this. Joking, and he's making jokes the whole Yom Kippur. The gates are going to open, the gates are going to open. One time I'm going to show the video on this thing, I was at a Hasidic Tish. That means he comes to Jerusalem, and all the Hasidim, in the Payas and the Beer, the Ashkenazim. You don't see Ashkenazim coming to Sephardic Tishes. He comes, thousands of Ashkenazim come to see him. He's there, everyone's pushing to get the blessing at the end, he's leaving to his car, and I already know, if you want to get a blessing from the rabbi, where to stand. You don't follow him, you wait by the car, and you put your leg on the side of the car right before his door opens, so when he opens his door, I could stick my hand in. They're not going to close the door with my hand, I'll get him. I want to bless him. So he gets to his car, I get his hand, he sees me and he goes, oh, all the gates are going to open this year. He always called me like the gate lock guy. I take the rabbi's hand and I scream at the top of my lungs, the loudest I could scream in front of 1,000 people maybe. I say, no one forget the story when the rabbi opened up the locked gate on Chag HaShavuot in front of our eyes. And I said, and I believe in science and math, and I saw it with my own eyes. Everyone there was like, whoa. And the Yanuka was there like agreeing that it happened, you know. So it's like and they put it on YouTube. So on YouTube you could see the Yanuka agreeing that this story happened.
אל תשכח את הנס שהיה בחג השבועות שמה ינוקה עשה, תפתח את הדלת הנעול, נכון? כולם שומעים שראיתי בעיניים שלי נס בפרהסיה כמו בבא סאלי שעשה ינוקה, שהוא פתח שער בהר ציון בקבר דוד המלך, הוא פתח את זה בניץ, הוא אמר, הרב ינוקה אמר, זה ייפתח לנו. ראיתי בעיניים שלי, הדלת נעול פתח, איפה הנוצרים? אני בעל מידע, ראיתי בעיניים שלי! Yeah! Let's go!
I mean, we're dealing with a situation where this is a rabbi who could make a Sanhedrin, a court, cancel out the chief rabbi of Sephardic and Ashkenazi, unite the Jews finally, give us power to control the nation. I've seen the Yanuka come to Hasidim and Me'asharim with his keyboard and make everyone sing Hamalach HaGoel and these songs, and it makes you want to cry. You see, look how innocent we are, God. We're just singing before you, like we're on such a low level, we're so far from you, so much blind hatred in our communities, and here we are. We're singing before you. And I saw this rabbi is pulling mercy out of everyone and pulling mercy from God at the same time.
Wow.
Real righteous person. And not to mention, lastly, about the Yanuka, I think this is still secretive, but I'll reveal it, is that from the Zohar we learn it, and it was in a lot of recent shiurim about the upcoming redemption, is that a sign for the future redemption is the return of the Of HaChol, the phoenix bird. We know the phoenix bird actually is not a mythological bird. It comes from the Torah, from Judaism. It's in the book of Job, book of Eov, and the commentators say it was the only bird that didn't eat from the Garden of Eden, from the Tree of Knowledge, and this is why it was allowed to live 1,000 years and get reborn into fire and be eternal. It was a story that the Rabbi Yanuka told, that he was doing meditations out in the Midbar, in the desert, and he was meditating about which he does often, he goes to meditations, he was meditating about the phoenix bird. Where is it? What's going on? What's going to be? And the way he tells the story, he turned around, and it was there, right behind him. A big, giant, scary bird. And he said it opened up its wings and it was terrifying for him to see such a scary big bird. And this was on the holiday, he told the story. My friend went over to him after the holiday and said, what's going on? Really? You saw the Of HaChol? You saw the phoenix bird that we know is somewhere hiding in Israel? And he said, yeah, and he draws a picture of what he saw. My friend took a picture what the rabbi drew. So I have a picture that the Yanuka drew.
You serious?
Yeah, of what he saw when he said he saw the phoenix bird.
Show me.
This is what the Rabbi Yanuka drew.
Wow.
You can see like the fire tails at the end and the big wings and the
Wow.
He said it was like the size
of a jumbo plane.
So we're living in interesting times. I hope that if we're all serious about the Gula, if we're serious about the redemption, we'll be serious about what the Vilna Gaon says, what our prophecy says, that there are people who claim to be from the 10 tribes. The Jewish people have to recognize them, partner with them to end military corrupt wars, to bring peace into the world, and finally we'll have a third temple, the Beit HaMikdash in Jerusalem, where all nations will be invited to come pray.
You heard that? All nations.
All nations. And you come and your third eye will open, your pineal gland will open, you'll experience the divinity within yourself, the God within you, and we'll all be Mashiach, as they say. Mashiach is just a state that could happen to a human. We will all be Mashiach in the future. There will be Mashiachs that help us get there. And we could speculate from now till tomorrow who the Mashiach is, but we just know that the Mashiach has a job, and when the job is done, we'll call that person the Mashiach, and then he will teach us all how to be Mashiach ourselves. And this is why I think people have Mashiach syndrome. You know how many guys came over to me already and said, don't tell anyone, I'm the Mashiach. Yeah. I said, yeah, I don't know what to tell you, but you're number 20 on the list, but you're not crazy.
Right.
Because you may be Mashiach after the Mashiach teaches you what you have inside of your brain.
Wow.
It's like we're all a bunch of iPhones. We're using it for like see, I can go here like without entering the password. I could do like calculator, and there's no password. So like we're using our iPhones like locked out. But imagine you knew the password to your iPhone. You can go inside. You can communicate with other people. There's apps. You could learn. Same thing with our brain. We've been locked out of our minds. The Mashiach will help us get right back in there. This is where we go into next time, part 2, on what the role of psychedelics and the pineal gland and the Mashiach's light has to do with each other. It has something to do with each other. But I appreciate your time for now.